the wild black walnut. It's one of those wild foods, kind of reminds me of licorice in that the first time you taste them, you're probably going to have very strong opinions about them. To me, the flavor and the aroma of freshly cracked black walnuts somehow reminds me of banana. Not exactly, but it's sort of in that world. One of the most intoxicating aromas in nature is the smell of the black walnut husk when it's fresh. It has this very citrus-like aroma that is not in the actual nut itself, it's just in that husk. It's amazing. Now stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to show you from start to finish how to locate, identify, harvest, process, and cure black walnuts so you can actually enjoy them. But first, I'm gonna fast forward to give you this very important tip. Folks, I'm telling you, if you wanna protect your nuts, for f***'s sake, you gotta keep them clean. Hello, I'm Sean Rowe, host of the Wild Food series, Can I Eat This? All about giving you the practical tools and the skill to go out into the wild garden of nature and harvest some of the most amazing wild edible plants and mushrooms right around you. And also to give you that practical skill so you can take all that wild food, bring it back home in the kitchen, and know what the hell to do with it when you get back home. Well, I suppose that the first thing we should talk about is where to find these things. Where do you look? Black walnut grows best in rich mesic soils. That is, that there's some moisture in there. The best place to find them if you're going to harvest the walnuts is really in old fields or even cemeteries. This is a good place if you can actually get in there and harvest them. But I would look, backyards are great if they have black walnut tree and you can approach your neighbor or you have a friend that's growing in there. That would be ideal. You might even have one in your own backyard. Now, black walnut is native to America, but there are a few different species that live in different parts of the country. So I'm in the Northeast and we have Eastern black walnut here. It's very efficient to gather because the walnuts tend to produce just about every year and are usually pretty abundant. And the actual walnuts are pretty large compared to other species. If you are in the Northeast and have access to these amazing trees, then you're in luck. The best producers are going to be the trees that don't have serious competition with other trees right next to it. So they're not competing with their placement of branches, and you're going to be able to easily access them. That's important too. And take a look at the ground. If there's a lot of trees around, chances are there's going to be a lot of other leaves and a lot of other branches and debris on the ground when you go to harvest, so that can sort of get in the way of things. But let's talk about how to identify this tree. Thankfully, it's quite easy. Even if the walnuts are not on the tree, you can identify black walnut pretty easily even in the winter. And you can do that with the bark, the twigs, and you might even see remnants of the fruit that's on the ground still. That's possible. If we go up to the bark, we can notice on a mature tree that the bark has furrowed ridges. Okay, it kind of looks like a corduroy pattern where the ridges are sort of crisscrossed. You will see that in deep furrows, okay? Also, if you look at the twigs are going to be very stout. They're going to be very thick, okay? And if you look at what's called the leaf scar, that is where the leaf breaks off naturally, you're gonna see a pattern within that leaf scar that kind of resembles a monkey's face. Now, you kind of have to use your imagination a little bit, but it does sort of look like that. The only confusion you might run into is coming across a butternut, which is similar looking and also very edible, but there are definite ways to tell them apart. If we look at the leaves to the black walnut has what's called a compound leaf, and you see this on many deciduous trees where they have compound leaves. It's essentially just one giant leaf that has broken up into several different leaflets, and the terminal end of this leaf has a smaller leaflet than the lateral leaves usually on black walnut. Sometimes that terminal leaf will be completely missing in a black walnut. And of course, there's nothing really else that looks like this fruit. They look like tennis balls when they fall. So how about when to harvest? Well, this could vary depending on where you are located, but in my neck of the woods in the Northeast, I will typically go out in early October to start checking my spots. Now, this is a good time to mention what we would call duds. Duds are those compromised walnuts that are just not going to be viable. They're not going to be food, actually, because they will have dried up or just be kind of rotted in the inside. You will sometimes notice that the very first walnuts to drop, and this is similar to acorns and hickory nuts and butternuts, that the tree will usually drop a few, and these are usually bad inside. The ones that the tree decided that these are compromised somehow, it will drop those first. So the way you can tell that pretty easily, you can kind of see some of these walnuts that fall, the husk is kind of stubbornly stuck to the shell and may appear as wrinkly. In that case, you can just observe this. These are going to be bad. You just chuck those. What we're looking for here is a husk that is not exactly completely green, because these could be a little bit too hard to easily husk. What we want to find is the husks that have some blotchiness to them that will tell us that they are soft enough to easily husk, okay? Just a quick pause here to say that if you are liking this video, if it is useful and helpful to you, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel. It definitely helps getting this video seen by other people who this might benefit as well. So thank you so much. And also, if you want to get notified every time I post a new foraging video, you can subscribe to my e-list in the description of the video. All right, back to the juicy stuff. Let's talk about what to bring before you go out. I would recommend a few 5-gallon buckets. These are great to carry the walnuts in, and the fact that they have a handle on them, it's just very manageable. Consider bringing some water that you could fill one of those 5-gallon buckets with, and I'll explain why you would do that. But you might want to consider wearing some kind of heavy boot with a sturdy heel on it, and these will be great when it comes to the hulling or the husking of the walnuts. I also want to mention, this is pretty important here, that you want to be mindful that black walnut has a kind of dye in it. Now, I will say that if you are dating somebody new, if you are in a new relationship, you might want to consider bringing some rubber gloves with you to wear when you're harvesting these black walnuts, because your hands will stain brown. It'll last for a couple of weeks. You're not going to get invited to the extended family gatherings, if you know what I mean. So yeah, now that liquid that's in the husk is pretty strong. I would bring some kind of eye protection. If you're wearing glasses already, that's probably fine, but you want to just keep in mind that if you get that dye in your eyeball, it's gonna sting, it's gonna hurt. So I would avoid doing that if you can. And this probably goes without saying, but you want to wear clothes that you're not gonna mind them getting stained, okay? Because it probably will happen. Now comes the harvest. Now this part is very easy and straightforward. Basically, we're just gonna we have two options. You can either just gather the walnuts on the spot, husk and all, and put them into a bucket or some kind of a container, and then move them to a location where you can remove the husk. You do wanna do that soon, and I'll explain why in a second. Now, when I choose the location to remove the husk, what I'm looking for me personally, and people do this in various ways, I'm looking to find some kind of ground that's hard packed, right? So hard packed soil is great. If that is right underneath the tree where you're harvesting, that's ideal. But if you were to move them to something like a driveway, first of all, you're gonna stain the driveway. So if that's a bad thing for you, then don't do that. But also, they tend to roll around very easily on a driveway, especially if it's on an incline. So I usually avoid doing that. I'll either just simply step on the husk, and it's soft enough at this stage that you can just step on it with a nice sturdy boot, and you'll be able to remove that husk very easily by doing that. You can do that one at a time as you're gathering them, and then you could just pull out the walnut and pop that into the 5-gallon bucket, or you can do what I do if I have a bumper crop, where I will just get them all into a pile, husk and all, and then I will just simply dance on them. It takes just a few minutes and you can get pretty much all those walnuts in that area husked, remove that hull, and then it's simply a matter of just sticking your hands in there and pulling out the actual nut. The reason why you would want to remove the husk early in this process is that it is possible that the ink inside of the husk, if you leave that on too long, it's going to turn black, okay? And it's not necessarily going to kill the nut at all. It's just going to possibly change the flavor, and the flavor may get stronger. It may be less desirable, okay? So I do find a sort of uniform deliciousness, buttery deliciousness, if I remove the husk early. So that's why I do it right on the spot. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is floating, the float test. You can do this with hickory nuts, you can do this with acorns, you can do this with butternuts, and of course you can do it with black walnuts. The reason why we float them is to see if we have any bad nuts in there that we might have missed when we just simply took the hull off. So the floaters that float to the top when you put them in the water are gonna be 8 times out of 10 they're gonna be bad, okay? And that's because the nut inside has shriveled up and dried or is somehow compromised, so the actual shell is lighter. That's why it floats. You'll get some that float kind of halfway and don't come all the way to the top. They might be suspect too. And of course the sinkers, the one that stay at the bottom, are usually all good, so we want to keep those, discard the floaters. Now the next part in this process is the washing. Now this is interesting because it may not be absolutely vital, but however I do think that it goes really far to ensure that you have the best tasting walnuts, and that when you get them in your house to cure, that they're going to dry quickly and they're going to avoid molding, because the mold will kill the walnut, okay? And I've done this, I've made this mistake where I didn't wash them well, they didn't get totally dried. You see that shell is very convoluted and has a lot of opportunity to grab bits of that husk and that black gunk in there, and just it stays on there and it doesn't dry quickly. So we don't want mold. And the way to ensure you don't get mold is to wash them well. And a really fun way to do that is to use a power washer. Now this tip was given to me from Mike Krebel, who's a foraging veteran. I met him at the Midwest Wild Harvest Festival years ago. Mike gave me this tip about using a power washer to get these walnuts clean. And since then, I've been using this every year and it's so fun. I get so much satisfaction from seeing these get sparkly clean. Really fun to do this. And as you can see, I've just built a sort of a frame with some wire mesh at the bottom. This holds the walnuts in there, lets them roll around, and I can just get them clean in a few minutes here. The next thing we want to do is to get the surface of the shell dry. And once you get them clean like this, it's very easy to do. What I do is I just put them in a smaller frame. I have a baker's rack. I use that to sort of set them out inside, and then I just put a fan on them. I don't have this fan on for more than a day or so, just to get the surface dry. And on this rack, I have them separated well where they're getting airflow around them. The next stage is the curing, and to demystify this word, the curing is just a fancy way of saying you're going to leave them the hell alone in your house and just let them sit there. That's all you're doing. You're not doing anything else to cure them. You're just leaving them there. And after a few weeks, they'll be ready to crack. And if you crack them right away, you can eat them, but they're not going to taste the same. The flavor will not be deep as it does get after a few weeks. It will just get more buttery and golden and delicious. But that's going to take a little bit of time, so just be patient. And after a few weeks, you can start cracking them. You want to store them in a place that is not too wet and not too dry. You got to remember that these are living beings, in that kernel's alive, so we want to keep it alive. We just don't want to dry it out or make it too wet. Okay, so that could lead to mold and kill it, or it could just shrivel up and die if it's too dry. So find a sort of a neutral place in your house. Make sure that you got a little bit of airflow around there, and you should be okay. These can last up to a couple of years, actually, if they're stored properly. And that's about it, folks. I'd love to hear your experiences with this amazing wild food plant. If you have any questions, you can leave those in the comments here. And also, I just want to say stay tuned for the part 2 of black walnuts, where I talk about the cracking, the storing, the use into various delicious foods with the black walnut. We'll go over nutritional value and all that stuff, but stick around, stay tuned for that. And like I say, one of the best ways to get to know nature is to eat it. All right, folks, bye-bye.